Welcome to Adapt Curriculum. I am your host, Nicole Poff, and I'm really excited about today's guest. We chatted a while ago, and what I am really excited about is you don't often find someone who has the tenure at an institution like today's guest. Someone who has really weathered all the storms and all the periods of times with one institution. And I'm not going to share too much of her story because I want her to. So, without further ado, Dr. Christy Kirk, thank you so much for being here today. I am honored and I'm excited. Before we begin, can you just introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit more about you?
Yes, of course. Thanks so much for having me, Nicole. I'm excited to spend some time with you today. So yes, I have been at one institution essentially my whole career. I came to Concordia University Texas as a student more than 3 decades ago. Um, Began working in the admissions office year one, just really on day one as a student worker job. That evolved even before I graduated. I was more in a staff position, a part-time staff position than technical student worker position. Graduated, thought I would just stay working here while I went to do a graduate degree at another institution. Stayed on doing that. Finished that graduate degree. I did leave for about 2 years after that. I thought I wanted to be a historian, so went to work in the archives and rare books library at Texas A&M for just a few years. But at the end of a couple of years, really missed Austin, missed Concordia, missed interacting with students. Imagine that there's not a whole lot of students in the archives and rare books libraries. And so had the chance to come back and have been back for a couple of decades now. Really starting in enrollment, that expanded to student affairs, that expanded over time to different roles. So was provost and executive vice president for a while, and then took on the role of the presidency just 6 months ago. So been at the institution a long time, but yet in a new place, in a new chair, and still learning a lot.
So amazing. Would you have ever thought, looking back at student Christy, that you would be the president of your school?
Definitely not. I did catch the higher ed bug pretty early, and so I
Yep.
remember kind of like, yeah, I can see myself doing this. Loved being just from the very beginning, loved being in a learning community where just there's always opportunity to learn new things, to have rich and interesting conversations with faculty about all kinds of things. So kind of fell in love with higher ed. Certainly never thought it would be here, and certainly I don't think at that time I would have thought the president's role was something I was aspiring to.
I love it. I love that you say you caught the bug because I feel like it's kind of what happens, right? Like a lot of people I think temporarily step into higher ed thinking it's
Right.
something and then they're like, "Oh, I actually really like this."
Really like
Even though it
this.
drives me crazy
Yeah,
and there's challenges and there's ups and downs and every day it's just different. It is a bug that you catch.
it really is. It really
Yeah.
is. It's hard for me to even think about doing anything else when I think about the layers of what I get to do every day. I am an administrator at heart, love the work of just administrating an organization, leading. Um, but again, I love being where I can pop into a classroom and just learn some biology today and learn some whatever today, literature, art, music, and just be around people who are smart and curious and asking questions. And then I love pouring into students and really believing in our mission, that higher education changes lives. And for us, there's a faith-based component to that as well. So I get to do that in a Christian community. And it's just really hard for me to imagine having all of those different kind of aspects of who I am as a person fed in a different industry.
Absolutely. I love that you pop into classes. When I was an undergrad, I couldn't tell you who our president was. I went to San Diego State. I literally could not tell you anything. But at Kansas State, you will see our president driving around on a little purple golf cart
Nice, good.
and students hop on and
Yeah.
it's I love it. I love the president presence
Yeah.
so much. And I think if I would have had that as an undergraduate, I would have felt so much deeper connected to the institution. I really just viewed the school as a place I popped into and popped out. I popped in and out.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but I think that president connection is huge.
It's really fun. And for me, Nicole, so I'm the first female president in the history of the institution.
Very cool.
And that's been really humbling for me for all kinds of reasons, but one is particularly connecting with young women. And what I have found, even probably more than I realize, um, for women of a generation older than me and women of a generation younger than me, how much that means to them, and how much being a very present figure in that um, is just an inspiration for people. And I don't think that's about me. I think it's about the role. But I really try to lean into that and let students see themselves in my story.
I love that so much. I love that so much. Yeah, because you're right. They're going to have a lot of male presence in their life,
Mhm.
and showing just a high ranking female presence is
Right.
amazing. I love it. Okay. We're gonna move on, but
Okay.
and I do think that is a reflection of you. You said I don't think that's a reflection of me. I do.
Wow.
Because I think there you can be a president and be absent and hiding in your, office all day long. So your dedication to be around the students and to understand the impact you have on them is a reflection of you, no doubt. So I didn't want to move on
Thank you.
without saying that. Okay. So when we first chatted, you talked about Concordia as being nimble and responsive to the needs of students, which is awesome, and then also the Austin community.
Mhm.
So how do you ensure that that agility remains a core component of the university's DNA?
Mhm. I love that question and how you phrased it, Nicole, because again, I am a historian, and partly because I'm a historian by training, but also because I've been around here longer than almost anybody else. I find myself spending a lot of time in archives and old papers and kind of trying to capture that DNA of who we are as an institution. And there are a couple of things that I think are pretty core to this place, and one of is that nimbleness. And it sounds unusual for a small private institution. And yet I would think that's been a part of it, and it shows up in weird ways. We started this like radiation program in the mid 60s, which would have been almost unheard of for small privates. Maybe it was a little bit of a survival mechanism, and it was not successful. It didn't work. We don't still have it. But when I read of those kinds of things, I'm like, they really were trying to figure out a how to survive, how to bring resources in, but b how to serve the community. And as I've read about that particular story, um, it was a hospital system in the area. We used to actually sit right next to one of the major hospitals. And they had kind of expressed, we need these radiation tech people. And we said, let's figure out how we can meet that need in the community. And so for us today, what that looks like is continual revision of our curriculum. We are embedding certificates into curricular programs. We are just continuing to say, what do we, and while the majors themselves don't change, um, what happens with inside the majors do. And so just this week, doing a pretty significant launch of our business curriculum, including a concentration in brand identity and digital marketing, a significant revision of our math curriculum that includes data visualization, data analytics as a core component of the math degree. And so just trying to say, these very basic liberal arts degrees, how are we making them relevant for the community? And
I
doing that in partnership with others as best we can.
I love that because I think so often in higher ed we start inward and we work outward, right? Like a if we build it, they will come.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and you guys are really building backwards. So you're
Yeah.
seeing the area around you, what is needed.
Mm-hmm.
I worked one time for a healthcare college, and we had a respiratory therapy program in San Diego, a very competitive space, and none of the students were getting jobs because every respiratory therapist wants to move to San Diego. So our
Right.
new grads were competing with the entire country, not just
Sure.
San Diego. So I would have to go into the class right as they started and say, if you want a job, you're going to have to move.
Right.
You will need to move to Colorado or Arizona or Texas, somewhere, get your feet wet, and then you can come back to San Diego with some experience. But it always felt a little bit backwards to me. Like,
Right.
why are we a San Diego institution and then telling our graduates, hey,
Right.
just a
There's no
heads up,
jobs for you here. Right.
there's no jobs for you in our area? Um, so I love that you guys are assessing because because you don't want to have to send your
No,
graduates out of state. I mean, I think that's part of the
no,
bigger vision is you're preparing your Texas
for
workforce.
sure. It very much is. Thank you for bringing that up, Nicole. We talk a lot about that our graduates are from Central Texas and will stay in Central Texas. And that's not 100% true. We certainly have some that come from out of state, but um, we don't we're really proud of that. We're an institution that is a regional institution that serves this region, and I know you can get lost in the higher ed evaluative of what makes a great institution, and often that's how many states are represented, how many countries are represented, and there's a place for all of that. But for us, it is a very we talk about our vocational calling as an institution, and for us that is to serve the people of Central Texas. That's why we were founded, out of a particular faith tradition, to serve the regional faith tradition, and then that's expanded to the larger communities. And so, roughly 60% of our students come from kind of Austin and the surrounding areas, and we know most of them will stay, partly because lots of people move to Austin to come to higher ed and don't leave,
Yeah,
myself being one of them. That is a thing people do, but we need to be equipping them to meet the really rapidly evolving workforce of Austin itself, which continues to grow.
absolutely. Yeah. If you don't train them up for the local area, then they'll have to
Right,
move. Um,
right.
so what are just talking about Concordia, you've been there for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
in a good way. What are some of the biggest changes you've seen in how you
Mm-hmm.
serve the students, how you serve the community, kind of over the last few decades, really?
Yeah, love that. Yeah, it's so interesting when you're at an institution, as long as I've been here, there's so much that's the same, and then yet the nuances of how it's delivered and how it is, it evolved, just the things that evolve. And so certainly, obviously, for many of us in higher ed, the in-person versus online learning continues to be a challenge. And again, Concordia has always been relatively innovative in this. Going back to the 80s, we delivered courses by video cassettes.
Wow.
It's hard to believe in my own day. I remember this. You could come check out these pre-recorded lectures from the library, and then or we'd mail them to you, and you could take classes by video cassette in the late 80s, early 90s, and then that evolved to we were really some of the first in the market to kind of take education out of our own classrooms, or out of our own building. Our biggest example of that was in the early 2000s, our Masters of Ed program, that we started going to school districts across the state and said, let us raise up your own teachers that want master's degrees, and we will come to your district and teach this here in your district. And then when it's done, we'll move on. It's not meant to be kind of a permanent thing. And then, of course, that's changed to online, and these things continue to evolve, and we keep up with them. Um, I love how our faculty really embraces, and not perfectly because it's learning curve for all of it, but continues to embrace how we think about innovative delivery styles. And so, again, I don't think we get it right all the time, but I do think we actively wrestle with the questions of how much learning does have to happen face to face versus, and I mean, talk about even in a traditional classroom, what percentage of it can be hybrid, what percentage of it can be virtual in some way. Um, how is AI rapidly transforming what happens in the classroom? And I'm just really proud of our faculty that they continue to wrestle with that. I don't get the sense that the majority of our faculty are just, nope, this is how we're doing it. We have a dean in teaching and learning that really challenges them to continually think about um, how we teach and what really effective teaching looks like. And as a teaching institution, we take that very seriously. Our faculty certainly do scholarship, but that's not the primary focus of why they're here. And so the scholarship of teaching drives us pretty significantly. Um, and to do that in a way that meets the needs of all students. So our mission statement says students of all backgrounds, and we mean that very seriously. What learning experiences did they have prior to coming here? What academic preparation did they have? How do we meet them where they are in order to give them the skills that they need to A, graduate, and then B, go on and be successful in the workforce?
That's so vital. I think especially in higher ed, as we have so many faculty who are really subject matter experts in their field,
Mhm. Mm-hmm.
And then we pop them in a class and we're like, here you go. Here's
Yeah.
some 18-year-olds. Have fun.
B12.
Yeah. Yeah, I
It's
know
so
you have a
true.
PhD in biology, but have
Yeah.
fun with these 18-year-olds.
Right.
Um, but it's easy to skip past that. It's easy when all the challenges of the world are, facing you. It's easy to just say you'll make it work.
Yeah.
Instead of really taking the time to invest in faculty development and teaching them those skills. I love that that is a core part of what you guys do, and I think your students are probably much better off because of it. How many first gen students? Like, what is your guys' population of first gen students?
Yeah, it's about 40%. So it's pretty
Wow.
significant. Yeah.
So
Again,
lots
really
of
proud of that.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
lots of social capital issues,
Absolutely. Yep.
all of that. That's such an
Yep.
important, understanding that kids aren't coming to the classroom maybe in the way that most of us were
Yes. Yes.
raised at home, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
I was going to say that when even with faculty, not only are they PhDs in biology that never took a class in pedagogy, but they're also by definition kind of nerdy academics,
yep.
right? They're the ones that pursue. They were good students, they were successful at it, and they kept going. And so, what does it mean to teach students who maybe aren't quite that nerdy academic? And I love that our faculty, we're very proud of being a not very selective institution. In terms of a private institution, we're probably about as open door as it gets. And we don't apologize for that. We believe that God has inherently um, given people dignity and worth, and they should have access to higher education. Our job is to be good enough teachers to meet them where they are and move them along a journey so that they can continue to learn and grow and reach the outcomes that we have for them. And sometimes that's really hard work. Sometimes it would be easier if you just start with people who are already really nerdy, academically successful young
Yep.
people, and who just buy into the value of higher ed. And said we have to spend some time with some of our students, sort of encouraging them to get the bug, to get the picture. And yet it's so worth it when that happens, right? When you see them really grasp a love of learning for the first time.
Yeah.
That's where the magic is.
I love that. I always say, especially with open access institutions, right? Like when I first started out, I felt really good about the work I was doing because we were open access. And I thought students would never have had the opportunity to go to college if it wasn't for us. And then I realized, the table is still a little bit too high for them.
Mm-hmm.
We've invited them to the table. The table's
Mm-hmm.
too high, their seat is too short. Some of
Exactly.
these guys don't even have forks to eat with.
Right. Right.
And I had someone on the podcast the other day and he said, if you look at the retention rates globally too, you could say that only half of our students even get food at the table, right? We're
Yeah.
only feeding
Right.
half of them. And so I love talking to schools who understand that simply opening access isn't
Right.
enough
Right.
and that we instead need to actually think about who we've invited to the table and how we can accommodate, not them accommodate to us.
Right. Right.
I
Right.
love it. Now, is there any moment that like stands out in particular as a pivotal moment of like, wow, we're really standing on the edge of history?
Oh man, that's such a great question. Again, when you've been at an institution as long as I have, um, it's the cumulative moments. So I'm not sure I could point to a
Yeah.
particular one. Um, for an institution like ours, which I mean, speaking frankly, over the 100-year period, we'll celebrate our 100th anniversary next year. There have been moments that we were on the brink of whether we would close, whether we'd make it or not. Um, and I'm always proud of reading back to the institution and really bold steps that they took, whether that was the decision to become a four-year institution in the mid 80s or the late 2000s. We moved campuses. It's an unusual journey for a college. We sold our entire campus that had been there for 85 years and bought a new piece of property and moved in order to kind of to have more room to grow, B, to get out of kind of some pretty deferred maintenance buildings, pretty typical for small privates. And man, that was a bold vision, right?
Yeah.
To say, in order for this institution to survive and thrive into the future, it needs to literally move. Um, very grateful for presidents who have gone before, who've made those kinds of bold decisions that I look back and think we probably wouldn't still be here if that were the case. Um,
That's amazing.
that's inspiring to me, is to
Mm-hmm.
think what's the next bold vision, right, as a president, and not to create those moments for their own sake, but when they do come, to be willing to make the hard decision to move the institution forward.
I love that example. I love too, not just doing it to do it, right? I think a lot of we get wrapped up in this word innovation
Kind of glory and yep.
because it's cool and it's shiny and we want
Yeah.
to do it. But to intentionally move your institution and kind of recognize that you're on a maybe not so great trajectory. I
Right.
think a lot of when we see campus closures, people are like, I saw the signs.
Mm-hmm.
I saw them. How did our president not see them? And then I talk to these people and they're like, I just really was hoping. I just
Mm-hmm.
really hoped that it wouldn't come to that.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and so I think, yeah, being a president, you have to be willing to do a little bit more than hope.
Yeah.
And
Hope it's not a strategy.
hope is not a strategy. This is fair. This is true. So what do you think is the next big shift? Kind of speaking of future
Yeah.
focus, what what do you think, how do you think we're shifting in higher ed?
Yeah, yeah, in higher ed, totally. I mean, I continually speak to our faculty and really to our board and to say that AI is changing. I mean, and this is, newsflash, right? But I still think most of us in higher ed are underestimating the impact that the AI movement is going to have. It is going to, I mean, I've said it is like the printing press in
Yep.
terms of how radically it's going to change everything about what we do. Um, and again, we're embracing it. And we have conversations almost daily about what it means and how it changes what happens in the classroom. And longtime faculty member retired this year, and it was time, it was coming, but he basically told me one of the reasons he decided to do it this year was he just didn't, I don't have the energy to just rewrite it all, knowing that I'm probably in a 2 to 3 year window towards retirement anyway, and so I think that's going to begin happening more and more.
Yep.
And so it will lead to some pretty radical change in the workforce of who's working in higher ed.
Yep.
And I, again, I don't spend most of my day in a classroom and have to figure out the intricacies of these things, but I love it. I love the questions around what does it mean to be human. I mean, these are the deeply philosophical liberal arts based questions that we're going to be forced to
Yep.
ask in a different way. I think it's going to take teaching back to a very interpersonal conversation in a way. Now, how we're going to do that efficiently, I don't quite know yet,
Yeah.
but I think it is going to take um, assessments are going to be you and I looking at each other in the eye and having conversations about things
Yep.
in ways that you can't use generative AI to fake. I was talking to one of our communications faculty this week, and she said she's always been, tell students when she grades a speech, it's much more about content and outline and logic and format than it is about delivery, knowing how uncomfortable students are with public speaking, particularly in that first year communications course, and but how rapidly that's about to change, because you cannot assume that the content is original, and so
Yep.
now it's got to be about delivery, and in some ways that's okay, and let's figure out how to do that well, and now you got to walk with students through all of the I'm uncomfortable with public speaking, and so just embracing those questions of defining what learning is, and how to assess it better is it is huge scale change that is coming our way quickly.
Huge. I mean, for us and students, right? Like students still don't even know how to use it really
No,
well. Like
no,
I
no.
can tell exactly in my discussion boards who use
Sure.
AI, who didn't, mainly
Right.
because their citations are not,
Yeah.
we need to teach them like, hey, these are not real citations.
Right.
Um, I was kind of blown away the other day. We went and got a new puppy, and my 5-year-old, she's 5, she has an iPhone. It's not connected to a
Right.
plan. It's just we connect to
Sure.
the internet.
Right.
And she talks into her phone and she goes, can you give me 50 Taylor Swift inspired female dog names, puppy names?
Nice.
And again, she's not on ChatGPT. She's not on
Right.
Google. She's just talking into her phone because she's 5. She
Right.
doesn't know how to use anything. And then her phone picked up something and it generated lipsticks. And then she goes and tells her phone, "You were not listening to me. This is lipsticks. I did not ask for." I mean, she's having a conversation,
Yes.
probably because she hears her dad and I talking
Right.
to ChatGPT, bouncing ideas
Yes.
off of it and I'm like, "Oh, she's 5.
Mm-hmm.
She is." It was like this huge, forget the students right in front of us.
Yeah.
These students who are 5 right now, they're going to grow up in a different world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 13 years from now, she'll walk into a college classroom, and how are we going to be equipped to serve her well is the question we've all got to have before us, right? By
Yeah.
the way, her first grade teachers for 2 years from now ought to be thinking about that too, because it's going to be radically different. But
Totally. Yeah. I'm like, you don't even forget Google. Like your
right,
brain is past a search
for
engine.
sure. Yeah.
Wild. I mean, when I think about like pivotal moments, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
here we are.
We're sitting in one for sure.
Yeah,
And
we are.
again, higher ed should meet this, and for my world, Christian higher education should meet this, not with despair, but with hope, but with optimism of how to use the tools well, and yet still to recognize the dignity and value of humanity, to ask the deep philosophical questions, to teach them to use the tools in front of them well, ethically, responsibly, what's good for self, but also good for the larger community, right? These are questions higher ed should be equipped to ask, I hope.
Yeah,
And so to meet this radical change with just confidence in humanity, and asking all the good hard questions to use the tool well.
absolutely. And to not be scared of it. I read something on LinkedIn. There's a guy I follow and he reads all these higher ed books and he kind of had a light bulb moment this week when he read about when textbooks became
Mm-hmm.
something and how there was resistance around textbooks
Sure.
because faculty said, well, if they can read it, then they're not going to need us.
Yes.
And he was like, and that is a core part of our teaching now
Right.
is we
Amen.
textbooks. Um,
Right.
and so we're looking at that again in the future, knowing that we were resistant to textbooks at one time, and now they're a vital part of us.
Right.
AI will be the
Right.
next.
Or calculators or word processors or all the things, right? Google being able to research, my for my class, right? I graduated from college in '95. So just on the beginning of, oh, I can actually like Google, get some electronic sources, and that was very scandalous back then, right? That you didn't physically go to the library to find out to look at a source, and
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
the changes keep coming, and we've got a great call to meet them well.
absolutely. Yeah, and I love that you guys are embracing it. Not, I think there's still a wide focus on like punitive
Mm.
policies, right? How do
I,
we?
I heard a student at another institution told me recently that their university-wide policy is you cannot use AI, and I
Yep.
was like, wow. First of all, is that not sustainable? And B, it just I don't know why that would be a policy. I
Yeah,
was kind of blown away by that.
but that is, I mean, surprisingly, I would say about half of the universities are going in the no AI using checkers, which I don't even know how you would enforce that. I mean, I submitted papers that I gave to San Diego State in 2006, 2007, and they came back 95+% AI.
Love it.
Because I use the M dash. I really
Right.
do as a writer. I hate that ChatGPT uses it too because it's changed my writing style.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like, I was using this before ChatGPT used this.
Yes. Yes.
Um, before that I was using comma slices, and
Right.
my teachers corrected me and said, "Don't use comma
Right.
slices. Instead, use M dash."
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now it's somehow a red flag for ChatGPT.
Right.
So I have had to change my writing style.
There you go.
But if papers that I know I wrote myself are getting
Mm-hmm. Right.
flagged,
Right.
then that feels like a very unfair advantage for
Sure.
students.
Yeah, for sure.
Accusations that we can't really uphold or prove.
Right.
Okay, so again, future thinking. What advice, like big picture here, would you give to other university leaders who are looking to really strengthen their role within the surrounding community?
Mm. Yeah, I'm only 6 months into this president's job. And people have asked me like, what's different from your previous role? Certainly, it is how much time I'm spending in the community. I think you have to be present and you have to be listening. And so institutions better have clear plans for who's out there, who they're listening to. Um, and, for us, we're a small institution in a big city where there is a lot of higher ed, right? In the greater Austin area, kind of going a little bit outside of town, but 7 universities, including 2 very large publics, a very large community college system, and 4 privates, of which we're, if not the smallest, kind of one of the smallest. Um, and so, in some ways, it's how do you even listen to that community, right? Because it's just Austin is big, Austin is growing rapidly. And so it's forcing me to, with my leadership team, with my board, to really ask questions about who do we need to be listening to? Because it can't be everybody. How do we find the right subsets of the community that would make natural partners with us? And for us, that leads us to the faith community as part of it, because that's a distinctive we bring in the market. It also leads us to certain majors and programs. We have a strong nursing program, so try to spend time talking to the healthcare industry, right, and whatever that looks like. Or you could pick 2 or 3 like that say these make sense for us, because we can't be all things to all people. That just doesn't work. And so I think it is figuring out which of the communities you want to listen to, because there are communities plural. And for me, it's really it's got to be somebody's job. And so I'm not sure we're doing that perfectly yet, but I think that's part of my vision among my own leadership team, among some key faculty members, to say it is going to be in your job description, and one of the things that you are held accountable to, that you are engaged in these particular communities, listening, translating, bringing back what you hear, ensuring that curricular change happens in order to meet that need, ensuring that delivery styles happen in order to meet that need. And so, an example of this, we have a long-standing partnership with the Texas Association of School Business Officers. So it's a professional association of gathered of across the states, those who work in the finance offices of public schools. And we began delivering. Well, they came to us about 10 years ago and said, hey, there's really no degree that makes sense for our students, for our membership. They need an MBA, but they also need specific courses that really are kind of school finance driven. And so we said, hey, we'll create that for you. And it's been an amazing partnership. And again, I love this about the nimbleness of what we do. We built it, and we basically said, we'll run it whenever you need it. So we'll run a cohort through, and then we'll not for about 3 years. And then they call us and say, we've got more members who need this. And we'll run it again. And we just have continued to do that. And it's been a great partnership. Well, just in the last few weeks, we've really engaged with them again and said, okay, we started this 10 years ago. It's worked. What's next? What do you need?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they said, you know what, we have a lot of people who don't have undergraduate degrees. We've been really focused at the graduate level, but across our membership, you can imagine in public schools, maybe somebody started as an administrative assistant without a college degree, but now they've moved into the budget office,
Yeah.
and they don't have an undergraduate degree. How can we meet that need? Or we have some who are doing this finance thing, but still really being an educator is still really what they want to do. And so they want an MED, not an MBA. And so how are we going to revise our curriculum to meet that need? And so just sitting with the right people and saying, what is it you need and how can we work together, has just proven to be really successful for us. We do this with local school districts. We do it with other industries, businesses, where we've come in and said, tell us what your workforce needs. And that's got to be intentional. It's got to be somebody's job. And it's got to be ongoing. You can't just, the TASBO example is a good example of, you can't just do it once and then assume you've met the need.
Yep. I love this. And I love that you recognize that it should be someone's job. I think there's a lot of things in higher ed that
Yes.
We just expect all to fill the gaps. I ask a lot of schools too, like who's responsible for retention? Who's
Mhm.
looking at all the data? Is
Yeah.
it student services? Is it academics, right?
Right.
So this is very similar, is
It is.
having someone in the community who's responsive to the community and their needs. And I think right now, as you were talking, I was thinking about how much kind of distrust there is right now globally for higher ed,
Mhm.
right? Like I get I used to never get text messages with articles about higher ed, and I think now I maybe get 7 a week from my
Right.
mom, from my
Right.
grandma, from my dad, from all the people.
Yeah.
New
Yes.
York Times is talking about
Mhm.
education. The Atlantic is talking about higher education, right? Like all of these news outlets are now talking about higher
Mhm.
education and
Right.
kind of their distrust for them. So you guys are really, in my mind, building up that trust on a very
Right.
local level.
Right.
It's amazing. It's such a good model. I'm seriously. And what I love about this and all Texas schools, so every school I talk to in Texas, they're like, I'm not trying to be University of Texas.
Mhm. Mhm.
We're just trying to take our little kind of
Yep.
piece
Absolutely.
of the pie right here.
For sure.
We're not trying to be this flagship university.
Yep.
I love that. But it's only have been Texas schools. Let me tell you, it's
Interesting.
only been Texas schools.
Fascinating.
And it's consistent. They're like, we are not trying to be University of Texas.
Yep.
We're trying to serve our little area.
Yep.
But I think you guys have taken this already a step beyond what a lot of people are hoping to do, which is exactly what you guys are doing. Is still where a lot of people kind of are maybe 3 steps backwards of we hope to get there, and that's part of the vision. You guys are already in that part of their vision.
Well, thank you for saying that, and I love that. And again, I think I could go to presidential administrations going 2 or 3 back from mine that have baked that into who we are, and we do it. I'd like to do it more, right? Like you continue to say, and it's one of my mantras that I say probably once a week in some setting. I can build any major you want me to build. Bring me the right audience, and I'll build a major or curriculum, whatever it is you need me to build. What I can't do is because we're small and lean. I can't do a lot of build it and they will come. I
Yep.
can't just throw things into the marketplace and assume people will come. So what I've got to do is build programs that I know based on listening to the communities, based on signed partnership agreements that says there's enough people who enroll in this and it will matter. Um, and also, I think unique to us is we really take seriously that when we put something to the market, it doesn't mean it's there forever.
Hmm.
It's there as it meets the needs. And we're just as quick to take it down as we were to put it up, which is not a typical higher ed. We tend to think you go through all this work to get something out there, and for us, it is no, because we want to come in to a professional association and say we will do this with your people. And obviously, there's got to be a cost benefit analysis if the market's not big enough, if we can't get our money back plus some, then it's not worth it. But we're very quick to say this may not last forever. It will last as long as this community needs us to offer it.
I love that. You guys aren't a legacy items aren't a thing.
No, no.
Speaking of legacy, I have one more question for you.
Sure.
What legacy do you hope to leave with Concordia when the time comes to pass the torch to the next leader? What's your legacy that you're hoping to leave?
Oh, such a good question. And so interesting. So early in my administrative leadership to ask that question. And I'd like to answer it around that the core identity of who Concordia is and who it has always been still exists and in fact is amplified. That people really understand the core identity of this place, which includes things like great teaching. It includes things like um, students of all backgrounds. So I'd love to tell the story. Concordia was founded for first generation non English speaking communities. Now, in 1926, that was German speaking farm boys whose parents probably only had an eighth grade education and were seeking a better life for them by sending them off to the big city of Austin to learn English and to get a degree that led them towards social mobility. Back then, they would have said something like the American dream, right,
Yeah.
as an immigrant communities. Um, today our first generation non-English speaking are not German farm boys. They are a much more larger slice of the world, and yet we still serve that population that is deeply baked into who we are. And I want to continue to amplify that and not apologize for it, not turn away from it, but really make it even a more core and vital part of who we are. Our Christian identity, I want to continue to amplify and say, again, this has always been here. It is not new. But I think we sit at a moment where faith-based institutions have a call for revitalization. And I hope that this place is more comfortable and authentic in its Christian identity when I leave than it is today. And the third area that I'd really emphasize is around that the public discourse between the liberal arts and career preparation is just resolved here. We do not see those things as competing factors. In fact, we believe the best preparation for a career is a liberal arts education, and we believe great career preparation programs have the liberal arts woven deeply into them. And so, as we sit on this precipice of these weird questions about if college is for a degree, how do we really bake in? It is both, and you will get a really great liberal arts education here while you are also developing marketable skills, meaningful work that equip you for a life of a great career. And that we've somehow gotten past this one or the other conversation and instead embrace the answer is both. It has always been both, and we can do that well.
I love that. I love I love talking about the discourse between gen ed and workforce readiness, especially too when we think about language. Like if we were to say we have a program that gives our students all the hard skills and soft skills they need for their career. The public would be like, "Awesome, cool,
Yeah.
great." Well, that's a liberal arts
Yeah.
program. I mean,
By the way, we're going to read some great literature. We're going to learn some music.
yeah,
We're going to study some science along the way.
yeah, like literally
Yeah.
you flip the label of liberal arts to hard and soft skills.
Yes, for sure.
And that's exactly what you're doing.
Yes.
It's just what we call it and the how the title has become something negative.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I have loved this conversation so much. I am really excited to kind of keep an eye on Concordia, see what you guys are, continuing in the community. I think this is a really good model, not only for you guys, but for others to follow, right? To not be, you said so many things in here, to not, be the trying to fit for everyone, but to really think about who you're trying to serve.
Right.
And again, thinking about who you're serving and how you're serving it, not just opening up access, but actually catering your teaching styles and your classroom styles to those students. There's just so many good things here that demonstrate how student focused Concordia really is, and as an extension, community focused. And this has been truly a pleasure to have this conversation. So thank you.
For me too. Thanks so much for having me, Nicole.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you all for listening. And we will see you next time.